Hey guys and girls, Bored Now back with you. On this video I'm going to be talking about the first episode of Amazon's new series The Wheel of Time, and episode 1 is called Leavetaking. So this is based on a series of fantasy novels, and certainly when it comes to budget, it's one of the highest budget shows yet from Amazon, and that really shows at times. So I think a fair bit of anticipation for this, especially from the fans of the novels. I will give a shout out to one of my followers, Alison Fordyce, because I know she's been waiting for this show with bated breath. I'm assuming that means she might be a fan of the novels. I can't say that for sure, but I'm guessing maybe that's why she's been waiting for it. Probably also a Rosamund Pike fan, because as anyone who's seen any of the publicity will know for this, Rosamund Pike, Oscar-nominated actress, is the big star name attached to it. And so the first 3 episodes are up now on Amazon, just so that you know, and then it's going to be one a week after this. The only other thing to say about that is this has already been renewed for season 2, which is a pretty ballsy move considering they did it before any of season 1 had been released, but they were obviously quite confident that it was going to take off and do well. But anyway, Rosamund Pike, who provides a lot of narration, her character Lorraine, who is like a sort of a veteran type witch type character, as she explains in the opening voiceover monologuing style scene, her and her bodyguard need to travel in time to try and find the chosen one, essentially, when it comes to witches. This prodigy who could actually show up in any form, and they need to discover who it is and protect them from the dark forces, from this reincarnated evil, this linked to like this dragon type creature, if I'm remembering the plot correctly. So that's sort of the setup. Then her and her bodyguard, Lorraine and her bodyguard, go to this village in this sort of mountains type location, and she has a sense then whoever the chosen one is, the next sort of big potential witch, then it is someone who's based in this village. So that they sort of in a way go undercover, go to the village and stay in like the local sort of tavern. And throughout the episode, Lorraine in particular is like asking questions and trying to find out who it is before obviously the dark forces come and target the witch, try to find her for themselves, try to steal her away, that kind of thing. So there's a little bit of mystery and intrigue set up. Lorraine narrows it down to like a few different people, a few select like chosen one, and that kind of leads to a little bit of a hook at the end of the first episode, where because midway through the episode you have like this big dramatic attack on the village, this big like battle, and so it's at that point where Lorraine kind of plays her hand, says who she is, and she has these few highlighted as like the potentials, so to speak, and says you have to come with me to this white tower, this sort of safe place, otherwise you're in great danger. So that's the whole thing, and that kind of sets us up moving forward. Now, I wasn't quite sure how she came to the conclusion of this group, like who the potentials were, so to speak. It seemed a bit random, that, and it didn't quite explain it like well enough. Obviously, as I said, there's this big battle, there's some sort of like romances really within this younger group, and that's pretty much the episode, so to speak. I'm not sure this is going to be for me, and I think it is a taste thing. I think the sort of fantasy it deals with, I do find a bit on the cheesy side, and I think a lot of times when you've got like typical magic type plots or plots involving like chosen ones, now obviously it can be good if that's done well, but a lot of times I just zone out from those sorts of plots, and it's just not my sort of thing. I think obviously it's a case of how this develops the characters. I just think in this first episode at least there's a lot of cheesy like dialogue, a lot of like clunky metaphors that just hit you over the head, and some of it is just like a taste thing where you get a lot of like Mother Earth style stuff, a lot of spiritual type stuff that I think just in the way it's done and what it goes for isn't really for me, and I just find a little bit tedious to kind of sit through. I mean, there's like a test at one point, because you've got this one particular girl they sort of set up as maybe the big candidate to be this chosen one, and at one point there's this weird sort of like ritual type thing where she's like shoved off a mountain into like water down below, like, so it's a big drop, and it's like a whole sort of test type thing, and it's just stuff like that. I mean, I'm not that keen on. I think, as I said, there's a little bit of a romance with her and this other guy, and he's kind of bland, and I thought that romance was a bit young adult, not in a good way in my opinion, but who knows. I mean, as these characters develop, I might get a bit more into their relationship. I think she was quite good, that sort of, I guess, second bill lead, if you like, if you say like Rosamund Pike is the lead, and I thought she was fine, that actress, so it was just a romance I didn't really care about. And I think you do get a lot of plodding dialogue, which obviously, if you're reading the books, it's a bit different. That sort of dialogue can kind of work, but there is a lot of cheesy like metaphors, and the voiceover is kind of in your face. I think the other thing about it is it does stand out a bit too much than it's trying to be the next sort of Game of Thrones style show. It sort of riffs off a bunch of different shows, but the battle scene in the middle was very in your face, and it did feel very Game of Thrones like. I think it was an okay battle in many ways. I think, there were certainly moments of it that I was kind of into, and I think there was like a good effect at one point when the Rain character got involved and, sort of saved them, used her magic to save them, and there was some good effects actually in that bit involving her and her magic, but the creatures themselves I didn't like the look of. I thought they did look a bit generic, and that sort of took me out the scene, but it was a very long scene as well, a very long battle, which is why it reminded me of a Game of Thrones style battle, and I think that was the other thing, that it did drag on a bit too much, but it sort of stands out that they're going for the feel of that sort of show, but maybe more in a magic type sense, although there was certain moments in that show that dealt with that sort of thing. Obviously Rosamund Pike is very good actress. I think she does her best in this. I think she does bring a bit of oomph to some of those weak lines, in my opinion. I don't think so far we've seen the best of her. I'm not sure at the moment if the role really lets her sort of come out of herself, but it's a case of seeing how it develops. But I thought she at least added something, gave it something to the delivery of those lines, and I think she's a good actress generally, so I think she was quite commanding, even though I don't necessarily think this is the best role for her. But again, it's episode 1, that could change. I could have a change of heart on that. I think there's positives. I mean, I think the two big positives are her, and then the quality of like the production values overall. I think you can see that they've spent the money very well. I do like the look generally, like the way they've used the landscape, and I think outside of like that battle scene, for example, but I think outside of that there is a good sense of this village, this sort of community, and I think there's just an energy to it and the way it looks. So there's a scene quite early on in like the pub sort of thing, if you like. I don't know if they call it pubs in those days, but like the tavern, whatever you want to call it, where it's sort of, you know, quite early on, and I think it's when Lorraine and her bodyguard has just arrived, and it's sort of after the bit where you've had that test for the girl, and they're just all gathering around talking about their days and what have you, and that scene, for example, I know it's only like a small scene in a way, but just the energy of it and the people and their conversations and the colours of it, I think you just got a sense, and this felt like a very lived in, quite realistic type setting for these characters to get together. So certain stuff like that, and obviously in some ways you expect when there is like a pretty big budget, you expect a show to get that right, but generally, with one or two complaints like the way the creatures looked, but outside of that, I did think the look of it and the direction, I thought it was pretty well directed, this first episode. So I think those are the strong points. I just, certainly at this moment, I don't really care about the story. I think it seems a very stereotypical, been there, done that type story, and it seems to be going in quite a predictable way at the moment. I think there is a lot of bad dialogue, which I sort of concede might work better in the novels, assuming they're taken from the novels. And it's also that thing of a voiceover. A lot of times in film or TV, when you have a voiceover, you don't really need it. It does feel like too much like talking down to the audience, where obviously in a book, you know, that sort of narration, it's a different sort of format, so it's not really an issue in a book. But anyway, just stuff like that, and just maybe it is partly a taste thing that this isn't my sort of show. I am going to give it a bit more of a go. They've put the first 3 episodes up, so I'll certainly check out episode 2. I think there was enough good things in this episode for me to say, yeah, I'll check out episode 2. I'm on the fence on it, but probably it's a first episode, so I think I will check out episode 2. Another thing I thought, and it's just a small thing, which was maybe a bit jarring, was just the fact that you had a lot of like what you would say is typical dialogue in this type thing. But I thought what was a bit strange is then when like the guys got together, you know, in like one scene, I don't know, I think they were having breakfast or whatever it was, is then they actually started using quite laddie sort of like swear words and quite modern sort of dialogue, and I just thought that was a little bit jarring compared with the other sorts of dialogue in the episode. But that's just a small thing. It didn't bother me too much, but there you have it. That's my review of Wheel of Time episode 1, Leavetaking. So I will return for episode 2. I'll give it a bit more of a go. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe. Share me out on social media. Also ding the bell on YouTube for more notifications. And I'll be back with more new TV reviews soon. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.